last but not least in our presentations on technology is Trystan Eeles, the co-founder and COO of Liftango. Looking forward to your presentation, Trystan.
Thanks, Helen. Hi all. So thanks for the introduction. So my name is Trystan Eeles, co-founder of Liftango. We're a global technology startup powering some of the most successful mobility projects across the world, and particularly focused on shared mobility. Our HQ is actually here in Australia, but we have a growing team of offices now in the US, Canada and the UK, all working closely with clients in those regions to tackle shared mobility problems. So shared mobility is a pretty broad term generally. So more specifically, what do we mean by that? So currently, our view is that our roads are broken. They're full of cars, but not people. And to this end, that's our enemy, really, is the low occupancy vehicle. Whether it's an empty bus running around on poorly optimized bus routes, or commuters traveling to work solo, in whatever guise, our platform focuses on increasing occupancy vehicles on our roads. And we do that with a number of different platforms, but all focused on that same objective, really, of moving more people with fewer vehicles and fewer emissions. So from a Liftango perspective, our clients use one of a range of these platforms you can see on the screen. If I remember to flip to the next slide, there we go. So as you can see on the screen there, demand responsive transport technology platform, which is everything that you need except the bus and the driver to run a dynamically routed fleet of buses. We also have a fixed route shuttle platform, which is essentially a user experience platform for passengers, drivers and operators, which brings fixed route buses as close as possible to that convenient, personalized user experience of demand responsive buses without actually deviating them. So end-to-end journey planning, walking directions, disembarking alerts, live visibility of bus capacity, and so on. And we also have a carpool technology platform, which is essentially an app which helps organizations tackle parking congestion and also CO2 emissions caused by single occupancy vehicles on the daily commute to and from work. So it's, we sort of provide a shared mobility tool set, which can be used separately, or as in the case of some larger corporates and PT clients are doing, they bundle up those offerings into a single mobility platform for their employees or residents. And often using electric vehicles, obviously, improves the impact of these services. So if I flip through, so looking at the areas of our life that these platforms sort of help to tackle problems in. So in the case of shuttles, carpool or demand responsive buses, using the technology to dynamically route vehicles does a few things. It increases the efficiency and therefore reduces the costs of these services. It can provide transport to communities in a much more equitable manner. It can also make big improvements in the user experience of transport as a whole, which is really important here. It brings the concept of bus transport much closer to the user experience that we expect and demand nowadays. So personalized, instant, flexible. Traditional fixed route buses are often perceived as the option of last resort, and in our view, shared mobility technology like this is beginning to chip away at that. So these platforms, they support across many walks of life. As I mentioned before, rural connections, so where transport acts as a lifeline. Fixed route buses can never really operate effectively and serve a whole community. In urban regions, so filling gaps in networks or acting as highly effective feeder services to mass transit. For employers, offering sustainability options to their team, whether carpooling to or from work, using shuttles between buildings at the corporate campus. All of these are use cases enabled by our shared mobility technology platform. We're all focused on the same thing, that's sustainable and socially responsible transport provision, essentially. So this is one really good example of this at play. So Woolworths head office here in Sydney, they set a target to reduce CO2 emissions from their low occupancy vehicles driven by staff to and from the office. And together we produced a white label carpooling app called Team Ride, which was essentially to help employees find and share trips together to and from work. So importantly here, the program also designed a really strong but simple incentive program using existing parking assets, you can see them on the screen there, but unlocking them with the app technology. And this is again another example of a mobility program focused on tackling CO2 emissions at the source and also having some positive social impacts and also removing the need for additional parking infrastructure spend. Less concrete is always a good thing in our view. And what I might wrap up on here is sort of the use cases and the number of trends that are driving towards sustainable mobility. So there's been rapid deployments and improvements in technology, and these are bringing efficiencies. So leveraging pools of existing assets within our communities or networks that segregated fleets of buses and vehicles can't do, and that in turn results in value for money. The other point that's interesting at the moment is travel patterns are now more dynamic than at any point in recent history. The traditional hyperpeaks that we used to see on public transport are unrecognisable, and behaviours are continuing to change. And so, technology that enables dynamic transport systems are far more suited to this new environment and having a real impact. The social impact here is also really interesting area being explored by a number of research groups at the moment. What is the true environmental and social benefits, tangible or otherwise, of providing access to transport for someone that previously didn't have the option to walk to a bus stop, for example? So if there's a few researchers working on this, but spending a lot of time on that subject, and the impact is significant. The economic, environmental, social, and health outcomes of transport access is pretty important. It shouldn't be understated. And sometimes, on paper, that can be in direct conflict with the value for money point here. But our view, it's that question of transport provision. Is it a single or a triple bottom line? And that discussion has sort of been played out in the transport world at the moment. So that's it for me. Just to recap, so Liftango focused on solving the problem of low occupancy vehicles with our technology platforms, essentially moving towards a socially responsible and sustainable transport future. Thank you.